boss.
Ah, shit!
Good news, boss. We just shut down another abortion clinic.
Oh, yeah, great. That's great.
Yes, boss. You've made other Christians so happy. Oh, boss. If you're going to jack off, shall I fetch your comrade?
Hey, I wasn't jacking off.
Sure thing, boss. I'll go get your comrade.
After a long 3-week wait, South Park has finally returned with a brand new episode, and it did not disappoint. Unless, of course, you're a MAGA fake Christian, in which case you'll likely be pretty upset about your bastardization of an entire religion being the butt of this week's joke.
You know, they're all just a bunch of libtards anyways. I know what's up. I listen to podcasts. You want to know who I think the Antichrist is? Greta Thunberg, with her stupid haircut and her dumb bangs. Someone should yank out whatever's up her ass.
Now, there were a lot of themes addressed in this episode, from more Trump tiny dick trolling to the ongoing Satan butt baby side plot, and even Peter Thiel and the surveillance state. But what made this episode so special for me was its emphasis on dismantling and pointing out the hypocrisy of fake modern MAGA Christianity, while still being able to keep things hilariously poignant and relevant.
Wait, why is there a camera inside the girl's bathroom? To stop the Antichrist.
As always, when we cover South Park here at Really American, we'll do a quick recap breakdown of the episode with some help from a great channel I found called Johnny Two Cellos, who makes awesome South Park deep dive content, show you all of the hilarious moments I can on YouTube without getting dinged, and then really dissect the themes at the end. So, if you like this video, consider dropping a like and subscribing. It really helps the channel out. And I will link to our other South Park videos in the description down below. Alright, so the episode title is Twisted Christian. It's also weirdly season 28 instead of 27 like all the recent ones, so if you're having trouble finding it, that may be why. But the story essentially boils down to tech billionaire and future feudal surveillance state overlord Peter Thiel trying to inform the kids about and ultimately stop the Antichrist, which we assume is the butt baby Donald Trump impregnated Satan with earlier in the season.
And to make sure Satan could never have offspring, the Lord God did shrink Satan's asshole to the size of a tiny little pinhole, so nothing could ever penetrate and ejaculate inside of it. Until along came Mr. Donald Trump, whose penis is so teeny tiny it could actually fit in Satan's asshole. How small is Donald Trump's penis? Somewhere between 6 and 7 centimeters.
It will all kind of make sense, I promise. Stick with me. At least, it'll certainly make more sense than the internet meme it frames the episode around.
This episode initially frames everything around the recent 6-7 trend/joke, and rather than try to make sense of it or actually explain it to the audience, they basically just use the fact that to anyone who isn't in on the joke, it's kind of inscrutable, which I think was a very funny way to go about it, and frankly made me very grateful that I didn't have to pretend to understand it at all. But through the fact that it's inscrutable to anyone who isn't under the age of like 12, we get the rest of this narrative flowing. Power Christian Principal holds a big school assembly, thinking the numbers are satanic, bringing in billionaire Peter Thiel to lecture about the Antichrist. If you don't know, Peter Thiel is a tech billionaire who has had his hand in probably too many aspects of the tech world to even mention them all, but countless tech companies, military technologies, AI advancements, surveillance tools, and maybe most importantly for the episode, he's the chairman of Palantir, which develops tech for a number of these categories, particularly surveillance and AI. Though even more importantly, this dude really does have thoughts about the Antichrist, like to the point where as recently as September, he has been giving private lectures off the record about the subject. So, you know, clearly a very stable guy that we can definitely trust with the continued advancement of the surveillance state. But this honestly all tied really neatly into the ongoing stories this year, because obviously we've got the whole pregnant Satan storyline going on, which, while this wasn't explicitly stated before this, I don't think, many of us have inferred that it might lead to an Antichrist storyline. On top of that, this season has just been hypercritical of government conflicts of interest and overreach, and the ways billionaires have kowtowed to the government to advance their own goals that are not in our best interest. So Peter Thiel, both being an Antichrist enthusiast and a guy who helps run one of the most concerning examples of surveillance state advancements, is kind of perfect for, you know, the story, not for like the world.
But speaking of Trump, I think they did a great job here of still being able to tie him into the narrative in funny ways, even when the episodes aren't inherently about him, because as we'll see, the real main character of this episode is actually Jesus Christ. But the next scene we get is Trump and Satan in some sort of pregnancy preparation class. This after the entire point of the last episode was both Trump and JD Vance trying to get Satan to lose or abort the baby. Vance because he doesn't want challenges to his position of power, and Trump because, well, he just doesn't want the baby to take attention away from him. Which gets us this incredible moment.
Of course, there is still one more clinic that will still perform abortions. Perhaps you should go speak with this abortion doctor personally.
So after this, Peter Thiel sets up surveillance all over the school, trying to look for the Antichrist. This causes Jesus to be very concerned for the children, and with how okay people are about letting Peter Thiel do what he's doing, he starts to have a bit of an identity crisis.
What do you need? I'm starting to wonder if I really fit in here.
Of course you fit in. This school has been a cesspool of heathen left-wing little bitches, and only our faith is going to set them right.
It's kind of difficult for Jesus to actually get through to anyone, particularly as woke is dead now and extreme rhetoric continues to take over. I like this being showcased as sort of an identity crisis for Jesus, like looking at modern Christianity and asking himself, did I do this? How did we get here? And it's also something that I'm glad the show is addressing, because the disparity between modern day Christians' actions and the stuff Jesus stood for is looking wider and wider. This entire episode, Jesus just keeps fighting for the rights of these kids and trying to lead with love.
I just don't feel good about treating people this way. I think the most important thing still has to be loving and respecting each other.
Which, you know, is just met with gay slurs from PC Principal.
And while Jesus is struggling with all that, we get this insane scene of Trump going to an abortion clinic to deal with his own issues.
Listen, I need you to perform an abortion, but it's not for me, it's for my partner. And you can't tell anyone, not even my partner.
Look, Mr. President, I've seen the news. If you got Satan pregnant, that's your responsibility.
Well, it's your responsibility now.
And in his hunt for the Antichrist that is somehow tied to this weird 6-7 joke, we get this crazy scene with Peter Thiel, Jesus, and Power Christian Principal.
Now I'm following the lead on this girl here. She went home to 67 Mala Vista Drive. Going through her family's medical records, I found that her father has testicular cancer and 67 days ago had one testicle removed.
I really loved that this episode not only decided to give us more focus on Jesus, but also on PC Principal. Since they revealed that he's now Power Christian Principal, he's remained a bit of a background character, a symptom of the changing socio-political landscape. But this put a real spotlight on his new attitude, and honestly, I think the game of the character still works just as well, switching from political correctness to power Christianity. The comedy always stemmed from how absolutely aggro this dude was about fighting for these very sensitive subjects. A guy who just goes borderline violently ballistic if you use a microaggression. And keeping that same attitude while he vocally advocates for Jesus, going as far as to rip his shirt off and trying to fight people who feel differently, it's basically the same joke. The aggressive action does not match the core tenet of the belief the aggressive action is defending. The character's entire shtick is hypocrisy. I was also happy to see them finally address Strong Woman, who is now Strong Christian Woman, and has adopted the look of some of the stereotypical media and political personalities we're seeing from the Christian side of things. Weirdly enough, the connective tissue between every storyline in this episode was actually Peter Thiel, and I think their commentary about him was pretty clear. He is straight up using satanic panic scare tactics, spinning stories about the Antichrist so that people's fear might lead them to give up more and more of their autonomy, more access to their personal data, more surveillance, less privacy, you know, in the name of safety. But as it turns out, in this story, Thiel is also working for JD Vance, which tracks. Both of their goals are to eliminate the Antichrist, right? But using the 6-7 joke as the connective tissue to some of these more fringe and extreme religious beliefs was a very funny idea. So because the adults do not understand the 6-7 joke, they think it's some kind of satanic cult. Because Cartman can't help but laugh hysterically at every 6-7 reference, he starts puking endlessly. Because he starts puking endlessly, this leads to a full-on possession storyline parodying The Exorcist with Peter Thiel. But let's talk about how it all wrapped up, because, well, It was kind of depressing, and also I think forecasts a bit about the rest of the season. After PC Principal tries to set up Jesus with a quote-unquote Christian woman, and Jesus has a little bit of a meltdown about modern Christianity, there is a confrontation with PC Principal.
I'm saying that you and a lot of other people seem to have a very warped sense of what Christianity is.
Are you questioning my faith?
I mean, PC Principal feeling so insecure about his Christian faith that he literally beats up Jesus about it? Pretty funny take on modern Christianity. But where this episode goes that surprised me was that rather than fully reject PC Principal and resign like I expected Jesus to do, he actually gave in. He goes back, takes the Christian woman home, cuts off his sleeves, shaves his beard so he just has a stash, and he bros out. And then the episode ends. And while yes, a lot of this season's episodes have ended on these sort of dour, downer endings, this one left a lot of threads lingering, and I think it likely spells out that we're going to see a pretty direct follow-up next week, because the Jesus transformation wasn't the only sort of cliffhang. Peter Thiel also wasn't able to exercise Cartman's 6-7 possession and claims he has to bring him to Washington. Also, this episode's original description on the Comedy Central schedule actually stated that Cartman's possession might be the key to stopping the Antichrist. I think this is basically spelling out what we can expect next week or in the future of the season. For one, they had 3 weeks to produce this episode, and I think it's likely that they used that time to prep how the story would continue into the next episode. 2, the next episode is set to air on October 29th, which would likely mean we're looking at a Halloween episode. And is there any more fitting of a time for them to have Satan give birth to the Antichrist than their Halloween episode? I guess maybe a Christmas episode? But I think I'd rather see Jesus be reborn that day. And on top of this, they showed that Towelie listened in on Vance's conversation with Peter Thiel where he revealed their plans, which will clearly come into play later.
Oh, boss. If you're going to jack off, shall I fetch your comrade?
Hey, I wasn't jacking off.
Sure thing, boss. I'll go get your comrade.
Honestly, I'm pretty impressed with the way all of these disparate story elements are starting to really coalesce. I've always felt that these serialized light seasons of South Park yield the most satisfying results at the end. And obviously the whole Trump x Satan thing has been pretty blatantly serialized, more so than a lot of previous seasons, but they're really bringing a lot of the surrounding stories together in ways that I didn't expect, and in ways that actually make sense. It seems like the next episode should see Peter Thiel using Cartman's 6-7 possessions somehow to try and help Vance abort Satan and Trump's butt baby. A very normal sentence, but a very normal show.
All in all, just a fantastic and hilarious episode, absolutely dismantling this new modern MAGA Christianity, as well as still finding the time to poke fun at Donald Trump, JD Vance, and prolong this Satan butt baby Antichrist thing. And every time they come out with an episode, I am just so proud to have loved this show for so long, and so thankful to all of you for letting me share it with you. I can't believe this is something I get to do as a job and you know, share my passions like this because it's so aligned with the current political climate. But I've always respected how, even with crude humor that can sometimes be a little off-putting for certain people, South Park and its creators still have the balls and the willingness to like critique these religious movements, especially the hyper-nationalist ones, and the institutions around them specifically, and point out like super ultra-religious people's blatant hypocrisy. And it's just insane because that has become so damn clear recently with MAGA and MAGA white Christian nationalists specifically. I mean, we've made a ton of videos this year alone about those people specifically getting called out. But that is all I have for this video. I highly recommend you go watch the episode. It's definitely great. If you don't have Paramount, I'm sure you can find it somewhere else. And like I said in the intro, if you want, you can check out all of our other South Park videos in the description down below. For Really American, I'm Kenny Hesse. I'll see you guys in the next one.